right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Growth Podcast from Interact. Today, we are going to talk about social media marketing. This is something that our customers are talking about all the time, all of you all listening, and for good reason. I mean, social is in the top 10 websites. I'd say at least half of them are social networks. So it's a huge part of the internet. It's a huge part of growing a business. And it's definitely something you have to do, like it or not. And so it's worth talking about. The specific impetus that brought this up for us was Instagram announced that they're going to be copying Twitter. And the reports say you can port over your existing followers on Instagram to this new Insta Twitter or whatever you want to call it. And you'll basically be able to use it like Twitter, but with your Instagram followers. So interesting thing. I think anytime there's a new social platform, there's opportunity for growth. Like we just saw that with TikTok and, the opportunity for creators to jump in there, get in early and kind of, grow a following that they may not have had on other social networks. So the way we're going to kind of run it today is we're each going to kind of speak from our own experiences and what we've seen to work on social, and then also what we've seen from our customer base, because we have a lot of people with really large social followings. So I guess to kick things off, and anybody can jump in here, the question that I had that I was curious about is what is working now? It's May of 2023. And which platforms and what types of content do we see performing really well on social media?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. So from what I've been seeing on Instagram, which is what we've been most active on the past few years, I would say that right now we're seeing a big shift to user generated content and also just in general, a lot less graphics. We're kind of in this new era where people are really putting themselves out there, making short form videos, making reels. But I think the new kind of big shift is that less graphics in a way. And if they are graphics, a lot of carousels, really like valuable content. But I think right now it's more about people actually putting their face out there, talking to the camera instead of just kind of representing themselves as a brand. That's what I'm seeing a lot in our client base. And it's also been a struggle for a lot of people to move to this because it's new and it's also kind of like a vulnerable thing to put yourself out there instead of just putting graphics out there. And I see that our customer base is trying to shift a lot to that too. And the ones that are successful are doing it really well.
Yeah. And I think on platforms like Instagram, the key to being successful there is repetition of posting. So you want to have some sort of like regular cadence of it. You can repost the same things, but it could also be different reels or different graphics or carousels, whatever you're putting out there. That's time consuming. And a lot of people don't love that. We get feedback all of the time. It was in the marketing barriers episode of, okay, I put my quiz on social media one time and nothing happened. Well, that's because nobody found it. I think the stat that we used in coaching was 10% ish of your audience will see a post when you post it. So the key is really, you have to continuously reshare these messages, which is different than platforms like YouTube and Pinterest, which are based on search, right? So I can your posts or your content that you're putting on platforms that are using search stay around a lot longer or can be found years later because it's getting picked up by people searching specific keywords. Whereas in like Instagram and Facebook, things just sort of get suppressed over time. So you need to keep posting to stay up at the top because people aren't able to search the same way for this type of content. They just have to see it because they're following you or it's related to something that you follow. And so the algorithm sort of like picks it up and puts it into your ideal customer feeds.
That's a really good point. It's a really good point. And I think that taking a slight step back, I feel like the point of social media, and I've been playing around with posting on LinkedIn more, and something that I've really noticed is if you have a back and forth with somebody, either in the comments, like they make a comment and then you comment back and you have a conversation, or you comment on their thing, they comment back, you have a conversation. There's a direct message back and forth about something that you've posted or they've posted. those people tend to be much more active in terms of, continuing to engage, and vice versa. Like if, somebody comments on my thing and I'll comment back and we'll have a conversation, and it's like, oh, now I'm going to pay more attention to what you are, posting and what you're, putting on the network. And then obviously the way the algorithms work is like, the more likes and comments and shares a post gets, the more it's going to be seen. So that's really important. I don't know if this is exactly a question, but what I do see, and I do see this amongst our customer base, is I do see people posting a lot with zero interaction, like no comments, no likes. And I'm not saying that to be shaming in any way. I'm saying it in the sense of like, at least from my view, that's totally pointless and takes a lot of effort anyways. So maybe if both of you were like looking at this as an anthropological study, when you're looking at social media and looking at our customers and our own stuff, what is the content that's getting interaction? Like, what is the difference? Like, if we were to analyze all the posts that we've all looked at, like, what are the ones where it is actually driving that conversation back and forth that leads to building up followers, versus what's the content that people are posting that's just like ghosting, like nobody's seeing it?
I think what Jesy said earlier, authenticity works to get engagement, right? So being vulnerable, showing up, because how do I want to say this? Everything always looks perfect on social media, right? And this is like a big trend too. I think especially with the younger generation coming up and bullying and shaming and all of this, life isn't in reality what it looks like on social media. And I think people are very open to that idea now that, this beautiful influencer maybe doesn't look like this 24/7. And so just being authentic and showing who you really are and who your business really is and who it really serves, and not trying to cater to everybody, is the content that's getting engagement, which I think is more important than just followers necessarily, right? I mean, as from the sort of like affiliate program side of things, where I'm looking and reviewing applications, I get to see people's social media profiles. And sure, sometimes I see the number of followers and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. This person must have some type of influence. But then you look at in the comments and how many likes, and there's nothing. And so I'm like, well, did you buy all these followers, or whatever you're saying? It's not translating, right? So just because you have 100,000 followers or 20,000 followers, right, doesn't necessarily mean that you are being successful on the platform. So I think it really comes down to authenticity, and ChatGPT is a huge conversation now, right? So I would say if you're using ChatGPT to post, because I've played around with this myself as well, and you're just getting generic things from ChatGPT and posting them online, they don't convert as well as you did this one authentic, really great post, and then use ChatGPT to create different variations of that so that you have more content to share. Because you're guiding what ChatGPT should be sharing in these posts. It's authentic. It's coming across as you. So I think that for me, that's what it's very obvious who's doing that and who's not. And you can see it in these followers versus the engagement that they're getting on their accounts.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. I was just going to say, I agree with Jackie, definitely authenticity, but I've also just noticed that anything that is entertaining and even somewhat in the topic of your niche, those are the posts that get the most engagement. And unfortunately, when you're sharing something about your product or your services, those are going to tend to get way less engagement, but they're still posts that you have to share. You still have to let your audience know what you do and not just only share, funny reels or relatable quotes. But I think finding that balance is really hard. But I think an example I'm thinking of is Lala Social Club. We had an episode with them. They do a great job of sharing funny quotes and everything and sprinkling in stuff about their services, some of their client wins. But same thing for them. The most engagement is usually on something that's funny or relatable, or something that's controversial, which I know people are against kind of the whole clickbaity thing. But when people post something controversial, the comments usually get blown up because either people are like, wow, I had no idea, or just it's interesting to read everyone else's opinions in the comments. But it's hard because the posts that you would like to get the most engagement and the most eyes on are the ones where you're sharing about your business and your products and your services. But that's just not how it goes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna follow on to what both of you said, where what I'm finding in my own posting and then kind of observing what other people are doing. Like there's another Bootstrap founder, her name is Melissa Kwan, and she had a post yesterday that did really well talking about procrastination. And the photo that she put with that was like her holding this sign that says procrastination that she has hanging up in her house. And what I noticed, I was like, you can't really fake that. Like the photo has to do with what you're talking about. It's like in the moment. It's like a good quality photo. It's not like grainy or anything, but it's not like, oh, I did a photo shoot for this, and it got a ton of engagement, and it was a good message. Like honestly, she was talking about like, procrastination from a different perspective. And the other thing that was interesting about that too is like if you look at Melissa's LinkedIn profile, it's very clear what she does. Like she's the founder of a webinar software. And so that's been my experience, where if I post something that's like a story about Interact that has really nothing to do with quizzes, people still click through to my profile and look at the profile. Like I've had, I think in the last week, my impressions is like 10K and the profile views is 500. So it's like 500 people clicked through and looked at my profile. And if the profile says like, oh, co-founder of Interact Quizmaker, like use quizzes to get leads, the people that are interested are going to then click through to the site. And so people do, at least from what I'm seeing, like people do, if you post something that's really entertaining or interesting, or it's a good story or whatever, they'll naturally be curious to like see who you are. And then your profile acts as like a soft sell. And then if they're interested, they'll click through to your website where they can actually buy something. So that was kind of what I was thinking about in terms of how it all ties together, because it's the same thing that I'm seeing, where it's like the stuff where it's like, oh, we do this and we're the best at that. Like though I see so many of those where it's like the second you mention like come work with me for X, like nobody engages with that. It's just like dead
Sales.
content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
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 But I will have to say, Josh, you are an incredible storyteller. So for our listeners out there, if you get a chance, go check out Josh's LinkedIn. I think that is such like a powerful thing to have for social media, that you are able to convey a message and kind of drop little like golden nuggets in your stories. And I don't even know how you do it. Like, how do you just sit down? How do you approach creating content for LinkedIn?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I I create space first. Like when I write stories, it's when I have a free morning and I don't have obligations until like 11, which is why I don't take meetings before like 11. I just sit for a couple hours and just kind of think about things. I'll also get inspired a lot. I read a lot, like probably I'll read summaries of like 2 or 3 books a week and listen to like 4 or 5 hours of podcast content of like entrepreneurs. A lot of the inspiration comes, it's like a mix between somebody else's story, like James Dyson, one founder of the Dyson vacuum company, has lots of good stories. So I'll listen to a podcast about him or read his autobiography, and then think about stories from Interact that are the same or similar to Dyson stories. And then I'll triangulate that with what is doing well on socials right now. Cause like there's a lot of stories about Interact that people just aren't interested in right now. Like, the social zeitgeist, right? Like changes all the time. So I guess I would say it's a triangulation between, what's historically done well, what story do you have from your business? Because like, for our audience listening, like you all have been in business, a lot of you longer than we have. Like we have so many people that have been in business like 15, 20  20 years. So there's so many stories from there. So I would connect that up to like, what is historically done well, what story do you have from your business? Because like, for our audience listening, like you all have been in business a lot of you longer than we have. Like we have so many people that have been in business like 15, 20 years. So there's so many stories from there. what's historically done well, so that you know that this is not just like a in the moment thing, like this is something that people are actually interested in, and then connect that up to what's hot on social media right now. And if you can do those three things, I think you can consistently create. But yeah, the motion of it is just like setting aside time on a daily basis to be able to write. And it's not a ton of time. I spend about an hour and a half a day like writing. And so it doesn't take a huge amount of time.
But I think too, Josh, and this is like what I meant by authenticity, that's you being authentic. And so if you're not a writer, but you like to be on video, then maybe that's you for 5 minutes in the morning, you know, showing where you are or talking into the camera about what you're feeling or the story that you want to tell. I think it looks different for everybody out there because we are all different, right? So like whatever is the easiest thing for you to do in order to convey this story, to convey these messages, to put these points together is what you should be doing on socials, whether it's through graphics and pictures and or blogs and writing or videos.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, video makes me tired. I don't think it does for you, Jackie, right? Like,
Writing makes me
you're
tired. Just
incredible
put
at
the yeah, just put the camera on. Let's do it. I
yeah,
don't even
let's go.
sit here
Let's
and
go.
re-edit my words 800
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
Thank you,
So
ChatGPT, for helping.
I'm gonna turn the tables on you then, because so for me, right, like, to answer your question, Jesse, it's like it gives me energy to write. It does feel like a little bit vulnerable and scary to put it out, because it is actually like actual stories. Like, I'm not just making stuff up. It'd be a lot easier if I was making stuff up. But it's like I try to get to the point where I'm talking about what I actually think. And once you do that, I think that does get scary, because it's like, well, people might not like it, they might not engage with it, or like they might think this is a bunch of junk. But the actual process of creating, it gives me energy. So to switch over to you, Jackie, like when you're sitting down to make a video, like, does it feel like that? Like, do you feel like making videos is energizing? And also, like, how do you do so many of them? Because sometimes we'll be like, wow, you make so many videos. Because for me, I'm like, yeah, I can do a lot of writing, but I can't make a lot of videos like you do. So what's your process?
I think I'm still figuring out the process, honestly. I started with in our community, just answering questions, right? So nothing was scripted. I didn't have a fancy camera. I didn't have anything other than Loom, honestly. And I would just get on Loom, share screen if I needed, and just explain something. And I found just in doing that, I was able to answer so many more questions for people so much faster than trying to write it out. Because if you know me, I get distracted easily. I definitely have shiny object syndrome. And so I might be typing something and go into tangents, or I might even be talking about something and go into tangents, right? And so these videos get really long. But that's where I started to craft the process. This is like where I'm at now is, okay, writing takes too long. I'm re-editing things too many times before I'm sending it back out to these people, right? I'm resending the same message over and over. So to go find it and copy it and paste it and move it, right? Took a long time. Whereas video, it's all stored in a repository. It's easier for me to just hit record and talk through what I'm thinking. And now I got to go to Dan Bennett's video cohort, the Video for Entrepreneurs, which we talked about before. And in that program, we talked all about scripting. So before you even hit record or sit down to hit record or decide what you're going to write, you're going through all of these sort of processes of thinking through, what do people need to know? How am I going to convey this message? What's the hook to lead in with? That was exhausting for me. And also, I'll just leave it at that. That was exhausting for me. It took a long time. It required even more editing work to fix it, to get it to where it needed to be. And now I'm at a point where, but it helped. Let me say this first. It helped in what my video time cut down in like half, because I was very intentional about what I needed to say in this video and not get distracted with the other shiny things that might relate to this topic. And so now I'm at the point where I'll script to a sense where, okay, this is what we need for these channels, but this is like a bullet point of what we're covering, right? I already know the answer to that. So don't make me read it off of a script into a camera where I lose my breath and don't move and get all awkward, but just let me talk about it like I am normally, you know? And it's become a really energizing process for me because everyone's like, okay, Jackie, we need this. And I'm like, no problem. Let's figure it out. I love to like a new challenge. I don't always know the answers. I have to go in and figure it out before I can put it onto video, right? Sometimes I just do it like, okay, everybody, we're figuring this out together. And sometimes I have to really take time to do it. So, it, and it can be different every day too. So I just don't put yourself in a box, maybe if you're like me, right? Like try different things out, be open to new experiences. I did just get the 4K camera, and that was really what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, I don't know. It kind of stressed me out because I was like, oh God, now I have to like look better because every camera can see every little crevice of my face. And, you know, I have to use this equipment, which just felt overwhelming to begin with. What buttons do I have to press? You know, what software do I have to learn now? But you'll get to a point where you sort of get in your own groove. And Josh, it's going to be, I think it's the same with your writing. You just know when you have the space to create, and doing it on video is way easier for me than trying to craft a perfect message with words, because I don't think I'm that great with words. So just let me spill it out of my mouth as we talk, because that's what I love to do. So that's what works for me. And then you'll see, because you mentioned this too, Josh, of it is a little bit scary to put it out there. But when I started and I was just getting people answers and providing value, it wasn't scary because they asked me, and especially after more people, oh, I saw that video. Can you make me one? Or what do you think about this? Right? The more people are receptive to it and want this content, and you can see the views and the likes and the engagement on them. So you start to get ideas of what works, what doesn't work. Like I was looking at YouTube analytics, right? I made a video where all the drop off was at like 2 minutes for maybe a 10-minute long video. Okay, Jackie, like you don't need to make 10-minute videos anymore. Stop doing that. And so you'll just learn what works, what doesn't, and keep crafting.
Yeah, there's like a couple of things. I was going to say 3, but I don't know how many there are. There's a couple of things that you said there that I think are really good. One is, even if it is something that's like really energizing and natural to you, like whether it's writing or making videos or whatever, right? Or doing podcasts, you do have to like practice. And I always think about like athletes, right? Like all the famous athletes are like, yeah, I spend 4 hours in the gym practicing dribbling with my left hand. And it's like, no one sees that. There's no way they enjoy that because it's really monotonous. And you do have to do some of that practice where it's like, I'm learning the skill, but then you naturally enjoy the process. And so it's the same with my writing too. It's like I can't just sit down and write exactly how I would want to write. Like I have to format it for LinkedIn or Twitter or a blog post or whatever it is, like whichever format. I have to practice that. So I think there's that. And then the other thing is that everybody has a different style. It's like everybody has something else that can naturally work for them. And I think you can just, as long as you can adapt it to the social platform of the day, right? Like it totally works. So I think that is good. And then, you know, it does just take like some momentum going. Like you got to get stuff out there. And I think, at least for me, and it sounds like the same for you, like the most momentum is when somebody's like, this was helpful. Also, could you do this? And then you're like, cool. When they say like the also could you do this, then it's like, oh, I know one person wants this content, which means that I always say like at least 10 other people want the content. Sometimes there's a lot more. And so those are kind of my takeaways. Jesy, on the Instagram side, since that's something you've been running for 2.5 years.
I think so. About 2.5.
Yeah, wow.
Long
So
time.
couple of things there. One, I think the grittiness to keep going, and the numbers have, you know, continued to go up, but similarly to how Interact's numbers go up, where it's pretty linear. It's not like overnight we blew up, which, you know, it's like if you build it fast, it goes away fast. If you build it slow, it goes away slow. So I'm a big fan of doing the slow route. So one, like about the consistency, like what do you find to stay motivated like through that? And then two, like just reflecting on your experience over the last 2.5 years and growing that following significantly, like what are your big takeaways?
Yeah, so I think back when I first started, there was kind of a social presence, but nothing really. So the first thing that we kind of decided to do is try and get consistent with posting 4 to 5 times a week. So that's what we started with. And back then there weren't reels. And that actually got us a pretty good amount of followers. A lot of our existing customers, we got to build more connections with them and kind of, have a new place to talk to them, since usually the only place that we communicate them was through chat. And based off of that, we actually launched a community group on Facebook, which we let a lot of people there and back to socials. And it was just a great opportunity for us to learn more about everything that they're doing, what they need from us. And that was a great way to help us make content to what to put out. But I would say that some of the challenges we've seen is with Reels coming out. That was great. You could post like a very not much effort put into something kind of like Reel, and you would get 10,000 views. Now that is definitely not the case. Now Reels do not get as many views because people are posting so many. But I would say, I think like my biggest takeaway from Instagram is that the harder you have to think about what to post, and the more like you're kind of like angst, like you're feeling like nervous about it or unsure, or you're not sure if it's going to perform, the worse it does and the more time it takes for you to even get it out there. So when we have good content, when we're making good blogs, when we've got good videos, when we've got good podcast episodes, it's easy to take content from that and repurpose it for socials. So it's not much thought put into it. It's not like I have to sit down and start like from scratch. So I think that is a huge thing. So if, let's say, you're worried about social, what are your strengths? Is blogging your strength? Is making videos your strength? Figure out what your strength is, and you can take content from that and use it on Instagram successfully. But don't ever start from scratch. If that's not your strength, then don't start from scratch, I would say.
Yeah, that makes me think about like, I know a lot of our audience is into like manifesting or the different spiritual practices, and I kind of buy into the concept that like people know, like they know if you sat there like agonizing over it and it's repelling in a way that like I don't know how that exactly works in the ethos or whatever, but it's like it's more easy, it's more fluid if you just sit down and write and publish. And I find the same thing in my own creating process. It's like if it's something that actually comes naturally and is normal and like just a thought that you have and you share it, and people are much more receptive to that. And then the other point that you made about the Reels traffic going down, I was thinking about this the other day because I do think there's a window in which there's an opportunity to capture an audience on social when a new social platform comes up, and it's pretty short, like it's a few years at the most, usually less, where it's like if you're in early to Reels or to TikTok or to Shorts or whatever, like you have a chance to capture an audience, and then it just exponentially gets harder after that when the platform gets flooded. And so back to the Twitter, Instagram concept, that's why I was thinking about it, because it's like, okay, here's a new platform. We as a team have a lot of practice with socials now. So what's our strategy going to be? And maybe we can just take, let's see, what time are we at? Oh, we're almost at time. Let's take like 3 to 5 minutes and we can just out loud brainstorm, spitball ideas for what should our approach be to Twittergram.
I think so. Off platform for YouTube, we're dabbling in shorts now. And what I'm realizing from this is you're not necessarily, and from the people I've talked to, you're not necessarily supposed to see a huge influx of followers because you're posting shorts. Shorts are strictly for visibility, and then the right people who see them will then follow, engage, whatever, buy whatever they're looking for. But I think the biggest difference on YouTube that we've made and we can see in the results is linking the content. So it's not necessarily to say like all 500 videos that we have on YouTube, you should watch them in this order. It's not like that at all. But hey, if you're watching this video, then it's very likely you're going to want to do this thing next. And so I think bringing that over to the new platform would work sort of the same, maybe not algorithmically, right? But you want to lead people to the next thing so that if they are piqued their interest or they're curious, they go do that next thing without having to think too hard about what it is. Because if they have to think too hard or they don't know what it is, they're not going to do it. So I think bringing that over to the new platform would be something that we should focus on. I mean, really for any platform that we're on, because we're already doing that with YouTube and we've seen the numbers grow quite a bit. And it helps to boost us in the algorithm because more people are watching our content because the right videos are being surfaced or recommended after they watch something which they searched for or found, however they found. And also, I want to say too, that helps with collaborations and partnerships because maybe we don't make the content, right? Like maybe it's, marketing your quiz and we link out to somebody, a customer who's actually done this and what they're doing and how they did it, right? We don't have to recreate that content. We can amplify that customer, show off what they did. They can then amplify, interact back for their audience of other people who aren't currently using quizzes. So I think by linking content in that way, whether it's your own or someone else's, it's a really great way to grow awareness so that the right people start engaging and following.
I like that. So buyer journey for the first one and collaborations for the second one for our Twittergram strategy.
Yeah, totally.
What else we got?
I think that this is going to be a really cool opportunity for a new place and way for our customers to share their quizzes. So I think that I have no clue what this is going to look like. You said it might be in the Instagram app. Yeah. So I mean, as of now, people shared a post and then you say, go to the link in my bio, or they shared it on their story and they said, click here. But now is the opportunity to start a conversation about your quizzes, start a thread. And now I feel like in this situation, people are going to reply what result they got and everything else. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to kind of hop in and start educating people like, look, here's one little thread. Here's how you can build a quiz with Interact AI. Like, click this and you can try it. This took 5 minutes to read and you can do this in 5 minutes. So I think this is going to be an exciting opportunity for us. And I'm excited to see everyone's quizzes, more places to share and promote it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So whatever that one, like sharing quiz results within a thread, like that's something that people always are trying to do on Instagram or LinkedIn, but the comments are like hidden, whereas the way that Twitter works, and I would imagine this Instagram, Twitter will work, is like replies are very much part of the post. And so having like a conversational aspect to it, and then being able to share our strategies more and more simply, like as our AI continues to develop and the process of writing a quiz gets shorter and shorter, now it doesn't need to be like a 10-minute video or a blog post. It can be a Instagram, Twitter thread of like, here's the 5 steps to make a AI quiz.
Which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah. We're doing cool stuff. Awesome.
I would also say, Josh, pay attention to what you like on social and what your own behavior, right? And maybe try to mimic that for your business or whatever it is that you're sharing or wanting to promote, because we all scroll differently, right? There's mindless scrolling, there's intentional scrolling, there's, oops, I didn't mean to find this, but I did scrolling, right? Like you never know. And so linking the right content to the right places, being repetitive in what you're posting and maybe how you're talking about your quiz. So there's one of like why you'd want to take this quiz, what you're going to find out after you took the quiz, what happened after you continued with this person, what do your results look like then? Those are all very different threads that would all essentially lead back to a call to action of take this quiz, or after you have the quiz result, follow this funnel next, which is essentially what you're trying to do with your business, put someone into this funnel and get them to the end of it to buy or whatever it is that you're wanting people to do. So just pay attention to your own scrolling and what do you click on? When do you choose to click on a bio versus not, or an additional link, or go off the platform to a website, and try to recreate that for your customers, because it's probably people who are just like you are following you.
That's a good point. Yeah, I like that. So we have our conversational, we have our, what were the other ones? There's
watch the replay.
Yeah, I was gonna try to recap and then completely blanked. It's that time of day. But I think that's a good strategy for us. So we'll kind of solidify that and share that as a blog post, probably, like what is our once we figure out what the name of this is going to be, we'll share Interact's strategy for this new social network, and then maybe we can do a follow-up episode in a few months and share how things are going, just to kind of keep people in line with that. So I think that is it for today. It's a fun conversation. So thank you both. And we will wrap this up. There's no big announcements this week. So kind of just, if you need an AI quiz,
Yeah, Jesmyn's
coming back. That's the big announcement.
Woo.
Back from the world tour. So that will be exciting. I'm off next week, so Jesmyn can jump back in, and I think Damaris will be back next week as well. So look forward to that. And
Perfect.
that's it.
Yeah. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. Enjoy the weekend.